Hello everyone and welcome to the third and final episode of All American Rowing, proudly sponsored by Wintec and King Racing here on the banks of the River Charles. I'm Fergus Mainland, and for today's episode I'm delighted to be joined by the brilliant Tom Morgan and world rowing commentator Colleen Saville. Colleen, thank you very much for coming along. We're delighted to have you in the studio. Now, you're a Boston resident. How is the head of the Charles from a Bostonian's side of things?
Yeah, that's perfectly put. So
Okay.
yeah, delighted to be here, Fergus, Tom. Thank you. From a Bostonian's point of view, the head of the Charles, well, we call it Christmas. It's Rowers' Christmas. It really is. It's absolutely incredible. The weather was stunning, just picture perfect this weekend, and truly it is such a highlight of the fall. There's so much to do. There's so much pomp and circumstance. People really, really look forward to it, and yeah, it's fabulous that we got such a good weekend for it.
Yeah, we feel like we've done a really good job of bringing the weather across, haven't we, Tom? Because it sounds like there's been all sorts of weathers and storms and everything, but we're here and we've delivered, and the racing itself has been phenomenal. And I think, Tom, probably a really good place to start this morning is the youth events, because we've had a sense of building, a sense of anticipation that we've been looking forward to this all weekend, and they've absolutely delivered, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been phenomenal, and I always get excited about the youth events because it's the one category that I rode in as a kid. So for me, I feel a long-time connection to it. I thought performances of Rye, Ed and I were down by the riverbank when Rye came past, and we immediately were like, they will win. They were the first crew out, and we just knew they would win. They were so smooth, so powerful. St. Paul's retaining their title just narrowly ahead of St. Joe's Prep, who I saw you catching up with John Fife just a moment ago. I'm sure he has lots to say on the subject. And then, yeah, Windsor boys, ever effective, ever efficient. But the one that stood out to me was Marlowe. Now, the man behind the camera, Ed Evans, has a soft spot for Marlowe. I know he's been following that programme for some time. And he thinks that this is their year. And do you know what? I'd never thought I'd say this on camera, but I think I might agree with him.
He could be right. Ed Evans could be right.
There's a first time for everything. There's a reason he's behind the camera, but you never know. You just never know. So yeah, Pete Chambers, I'm sure, will be delighted with that result.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Colleen, Tom's just listed off basically
Yeah.
everything. He's covered the whole thing, but was there a particular one that stood out for you?
Yeah, do you know what? The RowAmerica Rye shell really caught my eye. I agree. They looked absolutely phenomenal, and was struck that 16-year-old Remy Hess in the stroke seat, so just 16 years old, and to put together that type of performance, she's got a bright future ahead of her, and I think will be a name that we'll keep an eye out for. But a thrilling day for them, and the margin that they were able to secure, I think, was very, very strong.
And I think as well, a program like that, who are just winning consistently year
Yes.
after year. I mean, they're just behind you in the banner, just in our little studio. It's incredibly impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, they're phenomenal, and that's a name I think that certainly has some international clout as well, but no doubt is known in the U.S. Very, very strong youth program, and as we were chatting before the show, I mean, so phenomenal to see increasingly such a presence from the international stage and community, but particularly from the UK. It's an exciting development, I think, for the Charles over the past several years.
It's one of these things, Colleen, that I think we used to have at junior level something called the triple in our country, which is the schools head of the river, the national schools regatta, and Henley. It's now the quadruple, because the head of the Charles is that first component in the four-stage season, and that shows the appeal and the attraction that this event has for UK athletes, particularly that top end. And I heard you talking before we went on air, Ferg, about that St. Paul's crew that came over back in 2018, who swept all before them all season. They sort of kick-started that trend, and now it feels like Leander, Molesey, Oxford, Cambridge, Paul's, Headington, Windsor make the trip year in, year out, and it is great to see. And to come here as a UK resident and someone who follows that UK scene regularly, and to have familiar faces around me
Yes.
is a comfort to me too.
Colleen, I suppose one to you off the back of that. We've now got a lot of these British crews coming over, and across the youth eights and the youth quads, it's now British crews that won 3 out of the 4 of them this weekend. Do we need to see the Americans step up and defend the home water a bit more?
Yeah, I think there will be. Perfectly put, and I think there certainly will be like an elevated understanding of the competition at the head of the Charles, which certainly has, no doubt it's a competitive field. But I think typically it's thought of, sort of if you're in college from a collegiate mindset or a U.S. national team mindset. But I think that's really quite an interesting thing that that it's sort of cracked open into an international competition. And so I do think that nothing, you can't take anything for granted. If you're having a great youth season or a great collegiate season, you really don't know who's going to pop into the entries, which is fabulous. The Bostonians welcome that. It's a good thing.
The Bostonians, I did get the terminology.
I speak for all of them.
Fantastic. Well, we've talked about some of the youth events just there, and earlier on today we caught up with some of the crews who were victorious. We caught up with 3 of the crew from the RowAmerica rye boat, as well as the director of rowing at the Windsor Boys School, Mark Wilkinson. Well, I'm thrilled to say that joining us in our studio on the banks of the Charles River, it is the winners of Women's Youth 8s from RowAmerica Rye, Molly, Remy, Lulu. Wonderful to have you all here joining us today. Congratulations, first of all, on winning Youth 8s. You must be absolutely delighted with that. Lulu, let's start with you first of all. How was it out there on the course?
Yeah, I mean, I think that our crew overall was really excited. I mean, starting like Babal 1 has been an honor, and I think that we were really excited to kind of represent our like club and all the hard work that the coaches like have been putting into us. And it's just, I think that we handled the race and the positive pressure in a really good way. I think that we did everything we wanted to, and I'm sure my teammates will get further into like what we had planned. But I think that we had a really good plan for the race, and I think we executed, and I think that we're really proud of ourselves overall.
Fantastic. Well, talk me through that plan. What was the goal for today?
Our main goal was just to have a solid start, lengthen out to a consistent rhythm, and I think we executed that pretty well. We had pretty consistent splits. Our Cox and Gwen especially helped us hold that, and I think it was really solid throughout. We definitely bumped the rate up towards the end and really used everything we had. And I think one of our main focuses was we were all ended up being super excited. Of course, it's such an exciting race, and obviously we're going to be nervous because it's Charles. It's Charles, yeah. And I think our main focus was to turn that nervous into excitement, just to fuel us and get us down that course as fast as we could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like one of the morals that we have is nervousness into excitement, channeling it in the right way. And another moral like that we like to go by is positive enforcement. I think we do a really good job as a boat to keep each other lifted and happy, and we don't really have negative energy in the boat. We have no toxicity. Like it's a great boat to be in, and it feels great, and I think that's why it moves the way it does. Another thing about Charles that's super unique is all the bridges, obviously. So I think when we go through all the bridges and like the cheers get louder and the excitement's louder, we learn to keep the same ratio, because I notice a lot of boats and a lot of times if you go under the bridges you get excited, rate goes up, splits go down, and then you go into a reverse kind of ratio. So a really big focus we had was like keeping the same power per stroke, keeping the same ratio, and not like letting the crowd influence our race. Like stay internal, let our race be our race.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a great way to kick off this season. You also had a phenomenal end to last season. We can see the banner behind you. I know a couple of you are up there on it. You know, what did it mean to have such a successful youth nationals for the program?
There you go.
I mean, it was so surreal. Like that was my first year in the 1B, and you know, there's majority seniors, so exciting to be around. They all had such good energy. And I think for me and Molly especially, we really had to learn how to carry their energy into this boat, just because I think that's what made us so successful last year as well, and hopefully into this year. And I think that is just a big part about our boat and the positive energy we have. And
yeah, I think carrying like what the seniors taught us especially, and like channeling it into the new boat, bringing the same energy and the same morals and concepts that they all like taught us. Like we learned what we know from them, so now we're teaching the younger ones and the new generation what they taught us, and it's just great to carry on traditions and see the club just expand and get better. It's great.
Certainly. And what are some of the goals and expectations or ambitions that you've got for this upcoming season?
I mean, I think like one thing that like is important to know is like something that our coaches like always hold us accountable to. It's like staying humble. Like you've done a lot, but like that doesn't define anything that you do today. I think that's like something that was really important for us in our performance today. Like we never like we were never like comfortable, and like comfortable racers like never perform as well as they should. So I think that like we were really focused on like getting out of our comfort zone, and I think that we really did. I mean, after we passed the Elliott Bridge, we just like found another gear, and that was something that I was really proud of. So I think that's how we like, kind of like translated it today, just like finding another level even when like you can't, because your mind quits before your body does, or
Yeah,
anything
your mind gives up before your
Yeah.
body does.
Yeah.
I think like another goal and ambition. I mean, the standard's set every year in the spring. We have a 25%. Each season is 25% to us. So essentially, summer's the first one completed. Fall's coming to an end. So the winter, we put our head down and we work. And it's not something to boast about or to beat each other. We all just put our heads down and really get to it. So then spring, we're ready. We've put the most maximum effort that we can. We'll start doing morning practices. We'll look at the standard set from last year. First on the girls varsity, first in the boys varsity, 2v second. Like, all those standards are either met or beaten. And that's just kind of how it is.
And I think what helps us get to those standards is especially our team culture. We just have such a strong one, and everyone supports each other. Everyone wants everyone to get faster as a club, and I think that's what really makes us move.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Well, congratulations on the performance today. An incredible result, and very best of luck with the rest of the season.
Thank
you.
Well, I'm delighted to say we are now joined in our studio by head of rowing at the Windsor Boys School, Mark Wilkinson. Mark, congratulations.
Thank you.
To your boys and to you and to the whole coaching staff on the performance, winning the youth quads for what I believe is the third year in a row. What does that mean to you and to the whole programme?
It's excellent. I mean, it's to do it 3 times is really cool. But I think more importantly for the next generation coming through, I think it's a lot of pressure getting into that lead boat at Windsor Boys, and history allows them to believe, but they want to go after their own legacy. So I think it's really important for the programme in that the generation or the next generation at home watching, perhaps they can see that if they work hard, what the guys are doing here, they could perhaps do in a couple of years' time, and that's what these guys have kind of shown as well, because it's it's not quite a new crew, but it's not far off. So. For the programme it's great. It's great for the boys, and to get a hat-trick of wins, that's cool. That's a bit different.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome indeed. So you're making a habit of coming out here now, as you say, 3 wins on the bounce. How much are you learning from trip to trip, and how much knowledge are you able to pass on to this year's quad ahead of racing?
Yeah, I think just expanding the horizons has really been the mission over the last few years, and we've tried to go. Like the UK is fantastic. Obviously, the standard is very high, but it's very easy to get caught up in just racing at Dorney or the same regattas and the same head races. And there's a big world of rowing out there, and the US is big, and a lot of the boys are going off to university or aspirational for that. So, if we can bring crews and athletes over here and get a bit of exposure, a number of them are doing official visits. I think it's just really good experience basically, and life's about experiences as much as anything. And it costs money, and it's obviously a huge effort, and especially when you bring as many boys over as we have. But that's it. That's the challenge, isn't it? Can we make it work anyway? Can we do it anyway? And that's what we always set out to do, is not let limitations get in the way. It's like, well, can we make it work and try and do it? So coming over here is great, and all the other international trips that we do, it just adds real excitement and experience to the whole thing, really.
And a hugely successful day for the quad, but as you've mentioned, you brought a big squad over with you.
No, we have.
What does it mean to be able to offer this experience to lots of those boys and make the trip across?
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, we've got a big cohort of boys back home, basically. I mean, right now there's about nearly 200 boys trying to row, so if we just bring one quad over, that's really great for them. But what about everyone else? And actually, this is our 4th visit out to the head of the Charles. The first year we brought 6 athletes. The second year we brought 8 athletes plus 1 cox, and it got to 2 coxes and 2 quads. And so to actually get to the point where we've gone quad 8 quad with the selection. So that's 16 athletes and 3 coxes. Then we've got another cox out here who's actually doing a bit of coxing for TSS, the women's quad, youth quad, this morning. So that's 20 boys. So it's gone from 6 to 20 in 4 years. So while we can't bring 200 boys, clearly, that really shows that we're trying to be, we want to go and do well, and we want the stuff to work at the very top end, but we're trying to be very inclusive and think about the levels, and again, it links into the experience. It's not just about winning, it's about the experience of being out here, and they've had a wicked time out here, they really have, and it's been a lot of fun. Hard work and tiring, but in a very good way, for sure.
I can imagine, yeah. And well, in our studio, we've got some great crews and great pictures around us. Of course, your boys winning Henley earlier this year. You've got a couple of them back this year.
Yeah.
Reflecting on that Henley campaign, again, it was a phenomenal way to end the season, wasn't it?
I mean, it really was. I mean, like from the outside, I always think from the outside, it's very difficult to really understand the challenges that go on, because we don't promote the challenges, we just kind of promote what we do and let the boys rowing do do the talking. But every year there's different challenges that we've got to overcome. Basically, 2024 we had a lot of challenges, we had to overcome them. 2025, different challenges, but no different in terms of having to cope. Fortunately last year we had Joe Wellington and Ruben Taylor, just exceptional leaders who are obviously back from 2024, absolutely at the top of their game, right at the top end of the standard of under 19, rowing, not just sculling, just rowing generally. So we're really able to tap into that. And Bailey and Isaac, who came into that crew, quite a bit of pressure. We're defending champions as a club, and they learnt off Joe and Ruben hugely. And now it's their turn, really, and that's how it. That's almost the best of the way it can work. Actually, is when you can get it rolling like that. If some years, 2018, we had 4 guys in the upper 6. That's a long time ago, but there's quite a hard stop at the end of that. But when you can actually blend, upper 6, lower 6, 17, 18s together, and you get that really nice rolling effect, and then you got leadership in the crews. And if they do it once, well, what's better than doing it once? Do it twice, and that's the mission.
And what's better than doing it twice? Well, do it 3 times in a row ahead of Charles.
Exactly, yeah.
It's been a busy weekend for you, and we're a long way to go still in the season. But what do the coming weeks and months look like for Windsor boys?
Yeah, well, it's obviously we're still very much at the beginning of our training cycle for sure. We really don't do too much at this time of year. I mean, the water and the River Thames has been, thankfully exceptional actually over the last
touch wood
6 weeks. Yeah, touch wood. So we have done quite a lot of skill stuff, but we're gearing up for the winter. That's the hard yards. We need to put the time and effort in, clearly, like every rower does. It's no different. Is every rower bouncing out of bed going yeehaw 20k? Definitely not, but it's about the discipline and getting out there and doing it anyway. The motivation of Henley and coming to these events is quite finite. It's quite short-lived, but the discipline of doing it anyway is it's got to be infinite. Basically, you've got to get out there and do the hard yards, and we do try our best to make it exciting. We're going to Italy on training camp over the half term, which is cool. We're only back in the UK for 4 days, and we disappear on 3 days on our drive, and the boys fly out next Saturday. So it's kind of home, quick bit of schoolwork, and off we go again, which is great. And then I believe we got the right guys in the squad, and the next generation coming through. We've got Castor Shute and Joey Hill in that quad today. It may or may not be those two end up in the quad. There's a number of them who will rightly have aspirations to be in that quad. And Bailey and Isaac have got to prove their worth again. And if they all do that, if they all create that competitive but supportive environment, then the standard could just go up and up and up. And that's technically, physically, mentally, the way they live their life. The on and off the water behaviours which are so critical to it, and just sort of really buying into that whole kind of ethos of doing it anyway, and being very coachable. You've got to be coachable when you're an athlete, especially a young athlete, and if you can be coachable, then we can show them the way, and if they buy into it, then who knows what can do. And really, we're not out to say we're going to do anything other than be the best we can be. That's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's been a great start to the season. Still a long way to go until we build through the spring and summer months. But congratulations on your performances today, and thank you very much for joining us.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me. Great photo.
Wonderful to hear from RowAmerica Rye and Windsor boys. Congratulations to both of them, and congratulations to all of the winners in the youth events. Now, though, let's talk championship events, specifically Championship 8s, the biggest boats out on the course. 2 incredibly stacked fields on the men's side and the women's side, but let's start with that women's field, Colleen, because what a roster and what a set of results. Where would you like to start with it?
Yeah, powerhouse showing in the women's Championship 8 from the U.S. national team, so perhaps no surprise there, but was really impressed with that crew, filled with Olympians and world champions. So again, all eyes were on them, but they definitely showed up and performed, and didn't have a chance to watch the race unfold myself, but I imagine that they have quite a tight course there as well, with Castagna in the coxswain seat.
Yeah, certainly. And I think for a lot of them, it wasn't their first time racing. I think some of them were in some of the alumni boats yesterday. Certainly Kate Nifton was winning with Texas in the alumni. But that was a great result for them, perhaps not unexpected. What was perhaps more unexpected, I think, was, Yale. But not the Yale that we thought coming out on top, was it?
Yeah, Tom, you just had a little bit to say on that. I thought you brought up an interesting point, so maybe I'll throw that over to you.
Yeah, no, it might be the first time anyone's ever thrown something to me because of an interesting point that I've made. Yale's JV just pipping their varsity now. Hard to read too much into that. Obviously, Yale are the national champions, won the NCAAs, but it gives Will Porter, who's the head coach, there a lot to think about going into the sort of long winter training cycle as to whether he needs to sort of shuffle a few seats, make some changes, because I think it's often assumed that the varsity will be faster than the junior varsity and that they don't need to try to beat them.
Yes.
It's a case of they're trying to beat the other varsity crews. That's a good shock to the system for that national champion program, and I'm sure looking at that, I think they were 4th and 5th overall, so no alarm bells, but it's certainly going to be a good indication of what that program can achieve this year and whether they're able to retain that title.
Yeah, it made me wonder actually if by design they fielded 2 even boats.
Yeah, could be.
Which could be the case, and I think, I don't have the result right in front of me, but it's like less than a second or so separating the 2 crews, which is a phenomenal testament to the program and fabulous depth. So we'll be curious to see how the season unfolds for them.
Certainly, and Tom, we were just talking about British crews in the youth events. Well, let's do the same again just now. Molesey Boat Club. What an 8 Sam Tucker's brought over, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he was basically knee sliding down the grasses. He was so happy. I think the words he used were, "I may have a few celebratory beers." So he's a very happy chappy tonight, and so he should be. 2nd overall, and trounced Leander, who I think are their closest domestic competition. That boat's full of talent. I think a lot of the girls in that crew, or women in that crew, were remnants of the Wargrave boat that won at Henley Royal Regatta last summer. So an amazing outfit, and I think what Sam's doing at Molesey is just continuing to build pace.
Oh, exactly. And of course, what was fascinating on this side of things, of course, we had 2 of the blue boats from Oxford and from Cambridge out racing as well. If you fast forward 12 months ago, it was Cambridge who came out on top by 29 seconds. And at that point in the season, I think we all thought, oh, well, that's it, the boat race is entirely wrapped up. Well, this time round, Oxford have just beaten Cambridge by 20 seconds. And Colleen, I don't know if you have as much boat race hype as we do over here, but for us, it's a fascinating result that's just unfolded.
Oh, we love it. Definitely a lot of hype, and you will find when the boat race airs, the bars, particularly in Cambridge, packed with rowing fans. So, yeah, absolutely incredible, and definitely something we're following here too. Yeah,
and for Paddy Ryan, it's the first time in a long time, Tom, that he's been behind the Dark Blues. So work to be done at this point in the season.
Well, I wrote the JRN report for this. Go and read it if you haven't already. And this Cambridge outfit are chasing their 9th straight win. And someone I was speaking to earlier, the 77610, put it really neatly about winning on the spin, winning consistently. You almost need to lose to relight the fire. And I think this will serve as a really good reminder to Cambridge that they can't just show up, give an average performance and beat Oxford. That Oxford crew have got fire in their belly. They've got Heidi Long, Olympian, world international as their president. They've got Anna Anazakis returning in the stroke C. We know how much this means to her. I look at that and I think that Oxford are in a really good position.
Yeah. Well, let's flip it back over to the men's side. And, Tom, speaking of boat race, Cambridge came over last year, dominated the field, taking by 1, started number 1, finished number 1. And for Rob Baker, the man's a magician.
Unbelievable.
He's just got magic in his fingers.
I don't know what he's doing. Yeah. But that Cambridge crew on paper is not as strong as the one last year, but they've triumphed again against the likes of UW, Harvard on home water, that UW alum crew that had Logan Ulrich, Archie Drummond. They beat out all of the sort of US collegiate crews, Leander, Molesey. It's amazing, really, what Rob Baker is doing. And again, Oxford men didn't even show up, so
big statement.
I dread to think what the Dark Blues are thinking back in Oxfordshire.
Certainly. But on the collegiate side of things and on the men's side of things, obviously we see a lot of these programs racing at head of the Charles, and then they go quiet until spring racing. But big statements from Washington and from Harvard, very much picking up from where they left off in Philadelphia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Washington, agree, it was maybe a little bit of a surprise to see them finish 2nd, but still certainly top of the pack. And it's early. It's early in the year, but it's still, a proper race opportunity. And I think for Harvard, this is their home course. I know University of Washington, UW, has very skilled coxswains. In particular in the U.S., I would say they are known, Yaz, you name it, many coxswains coming out of that program. So I'm sure that they had a great course. At the same time, it is Harvard's home course. So there's a little bit of, that when you kind of look at the result. But as we look toward the spring, I think that's at least, I coxed at Northeastern in Boston, and that was kind of like our talk track around this time of year. Like, let's go out and have the best result, and it's still quite early. So I'm sure a little bit of that is it happening in those combos.
Well, a good result for Northeastern's men as well.
Yeah, I was really happy to see that.
Yeah.
I think either 6th or they might have moved into 5th. I don't know if somebody else was getting a penalty. I was refreshing quite quickly, but yeah, you're right. 5th or 6th, and strong result for them for sure.
And you talked there about your time and experience at Northeastern. How much do athletes read into these results at the Charles? as they then go away and do their big block of winter training?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if more than anything, it's a confidence boost.
Yeah.
And so if you have a good result, and of course, I don't know if you guys will be familiar with this, but there's something called the Foot of the Charles, which happens so that college teams will go back, the Boston crews in particular, and some visiting crews will race into fours. They'll move into fours and race fours. And that race typically happens like about 2 weeks or so into November. So you kind of shift your focus toward that. So if you've come out on top at the Charles, it's a really nice confidence boost. But again, I imagine your head coach is like, right, it's a boost, but like, let's get back to it. Let's think about training, whether it's the foot and then again into the winter. And then if you haven't had a good result, I think that can light a fire, right? And it's like, now it's time to really go in and work hard during the winter. So in terms of how people read the result, I think even if you've won, you feel quite good, and then you're kind of like, right, okay, look toward the spring. But it's nice to get these races, in, and again, the Charles is such a celebrated race that it's a good thing.
It certainly is. Well, we are continuing our wonderful guest list that we have on the show. I'm delighted to say that earlier on today, the legendary coach Steve Gladstone stopped by our studio, and this is everything that he had to say in conversation about the head of his Charles and some of his favourite racing memories. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the wonderful Steve Gladstone here in our studio on the banks of the Charles River. Steve, it's a pleasure to have you joining us on this incredibly sunny, beautiful third day of racing at the head of the Charles. When you're arriving at the course, what are some of the memories and emotions that come up for you?
Well, there are a lot of memories. Obviously, there are memories of coaching the Harvard Lightweights years ago on this river, and very funny story. On me. I remember back in the day when I was coaching there, it was 1969, 70, 71, 72. I formed a friendship with a man by the name of Ernie Arlett, who was family from Henley, and he was working over at Weld Boathouse with the students that wanted to scull and so forth. And I remember one day, I can't tell you whether it was the fall, most likely the fall, and we were having coffee, and Ernie said, I think what we really need in this country, and it would be great to have it here, is a head race. And I said, Ernie, what's a head race? And he said, well, the crews would race from the Charles River Basin up the river. And I said, well, Ernie, it's a narrow river. How can you get boats side by side? He said, oh, no, it's not done side by side. He said, it's done on the clock. And, you start boats at various intervals. And my comment immediately to Ernie is I said, oh, Ernie, that will never work. People want to see side by side racing. Fast forward
60 years.
60 years, and almost immediately, and particularly under the direction of Fred Schock, this grew into the event that it is today, which is very compelling, wonderful for reunions of people who had rowed together, and then for the youth, it's a great regatta to break up the fall training. For the Division I or even Division II, III programs, it's the same thing. It's a way of breaking up the training, and so it's all good, and it's a big party. People have a wonderful time. It reminds me, in many ways, of what the IRA used to be back in the day when it was at Syracuse, and people would line the bank, and there were tents, et cetera, et cetera. But no, it's a wonderful, wonderful event, and the person who should be, two people who should be acknowledged. One is Ernie Arlett, and the other is Fred Schock.
Yeah,
my opinion.
They've done an incredible job bringing it to what it is today. And you've got thousands of crews coming from all around the world. It's magnificent. But when you come, have you got a particular race or any crews in particular that you're looking out for over the course of the racing?
Today, and watching the racing, yeah, I'm always very interested in the junior categories. In other words, sort of a preview of what these programs, the strength of the programs, and of course the collegiate 8. What do they call it? The Open 8.
The big championship
The
events.
Championship 8. That's always interesting. and it's not necessarily how you finish here at the Charles, because it's such a unique event, having to pass boats, turns and so forth. Clearly the crews that train on the Charles have a significant advantage, but it's a way of measuring, somewhat measuring where you are in the fall. I've had some very pleasant surprises here. I've forgotten what the year was, but we won it. And actually, it was before the Yale program really began to distinguish itself. So, good memories of training Harvard crews here, great memories of friendship, and this regatta serves the rowing community, and I'd go as far as to say the international rowing community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you use it as a coach? Talked about your time at Harvard, but at the other universities that you coached at, how did you use it to then prepare your squads for summer racing?
The truth be told, I significantly limited any specific selection or training for this event. The fall is, particularly if you're training in the Northeast, the fall is such an important time to put on mileage and, of course, to teach good rowing. So I didn't want to spend too much time on a selection. So I'd give it about 3 days, and I'd tell the athletes that, clearly this is not a thorough selection process.
Yeah.
But we have to put boats together, and we'll do it. But don't think that you're a made athlete if you're in the boat. Don't think if you're an unmade athlete if you're not. So it's, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, and particularly with that focus, or sort of not a huge focus then on selection, have there been any crews that have, perhaps underperformed at the Charles that have then been on a real transformation journey that you've coached over the years?
I think you would have to check the records, but generally, the crews at Yale that I coached, generally, I finished in the top 4.
Yeah.
Usually, and during that time, I would say probably, this is a guess, that the head of the Charles boat that were put together in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, probably 5 to 6 of the athletes that were in the Charles boat would end up during the real racing season in the spring.
Yeah, fantastic. And looking back, I suppose, wider then from the Charles, you've had some great racing moments, some great coaching moments as well, and some incredible crews that you've worked with and had the pleasure of coaching. Have you got a favourite, or perhaps a selection of favourites of crews? But most importantly, I think why would you enjoy working with some of those crews and some of those athletes?
I think coaches, I'll speak for myself, and I don't think I'm unique in this way. When you have a group of athletes that are truly devoted to winning the races, that means proper training, the going through the discomfort of making changes, in your rowing stroke. When you're around these young athletes that are, as I said, committed to that, the energy is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed over the years with a number of crews, not the ones that have simply won national championships or sprints, but crews that have had that attitude. Crews meaning individuals.
Yeah.
They show devotion that comes back, to the coach, and the coach feels, and it becomes a union.
Yeah.
Between the athletes and the coach.
Yeah.
Common objective, understanding, and it's phenomenal. I was addicted to it.
I can imagine. And, it must be a very special relationship that you got. We're chatting earlier that, you've got Tom Digby's wedding coming up that you're heading out to. So that must mean a lot to have that relationship that lasts long after they graduate from Yale or other of your programs?
Yeah, the friendships that are forged, not being melodramatic, but the friendships that are formed in struggle.
Yeah.
Because when you devote yourself to speed in the boat, you are most definitely going to have ups and downs. You're going to have times when you feel on top of the world, other times where you think you're falling off the edge. So when you have that kind of struggle and you're doing it with other people, it builds a tremendous bond that lasts forever.
Yeah.
Absolutely forever. It's indelible.
Yeah.
I mean, I have in my mind, this might seem, how would you call it, bizarre, but I can picture Dave Harmon rowing. I coached Dave here at Harvard, 69, 70, and 71. And so they're fixed in your mind. They're fixed in your heart and soul. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And just finally then, we've got a lot of cruise racing today, championship, youth, and everything in between. What advice would you give to people who are perhaps taking to the Charles for the first time today?
I think what you have to do is really, in any racing situation, you really have to concentrate on what you're doing at the moment, just being in flow with the boat. And at the Charles, it is a head race, but it's not a long head race. So the advice I've given is, from stroke one, go. Don't worry about what's sustainable or not sustainable, because, in the curves of this course, of course, rhythm will be broken. Yeah. If you're passing another 8, of course, rhythm will be broken. But you have to come back, refocus, and as Steve Fairbairn said years ago, work the oar to move the boat. And that's it.
Fantastic, great stuff. Well, Steve Gladstone, thank you very much. We'll let you go off and enjoy everything that the head of the Charles has to offer, but thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful to have the legendary Steve Gladstone stopping by our studio earlier on today. Great to chat and catch up with him as well. Now, though, we've reached the end of racing. Head of the Charles 2025, the 60th anniversary of this event is coming to a close. And Colleen, we talked about the weather, as we so often do, but what a way to celebrate 60 years of this magnificent event.
Yeah, fantastic. From earlier in the weekend, the champ singles and the cash prize, that's been such an exciting addition, I think, to the Head of the Charles that has really gotten folks excited of course, the stunning venue and the rain holding off and the sunshine and most importantly the flat water. But as we've been chatting about, the event continues to get bigger and more prestigious and more competitive. So looking forward to all that's to come. And fabulous, I think, 60th anniversary for sure.
Yeah, certainly. And Tom, our second trip out here, just as good as the first time we came last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's been fabulous. Really, really great. To just be amongst the rowing community, I think, to spend time with people that I see a lot of WhatsApps from. Just, connect with those people in person and understand, why they're here, what's motivating them to continue their involvement with rowing. And obviously as a content platform, we try and sort of soak all of this up as much as we can and produce as higher quality content as we can out of the back of it. And, hopefully we're serving that purpose. And I think just being at these sort of meccas of the sport, it's critical for JRN's future growth, and I think long may it continue that we get the pleasure and privilege of being out here.
Absolutely. And Colleen, as a Bostonian, is there, when you come to the Head of the Charles, is there something that you always look out for?
Yeah.
Is there an event or a crew or anything in particular?
Do you know what? I love the youth eights. I love the champ eights. Don't get me wrong. The champ singles are a delight to watch. But the excitement, the raw excitement of watching the youth events, and I think in general just being around the high school teams and knowing if they so choose the future that they have ahead of them in this sport, because it truly is a lifelong sport, that really excites me. And so I really do always try to come down and make sure that I can catch the youth events, because I think it really captures the spirit of rowing, and it's just a wonderful thing.
It certainly is. Tom, have you got a favourite result or a big headline that you've been most impressed by this weekend?
Colleen just nicked my classic youth age response, so no. No, I think Oxford putting 20-something seconds into Cambridge in the women's 8. I think they have been on the wrong end of a lot of margins in the last 8 years, and that will put a lot of confidence into that program under the leadership of Alan French. I am excited to see if they can build on that. And look, I am truly, I know this will stun people when they hear this because JRN is always perceived to be subjective. I am actually a neutral. I don't really care who wins what. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to see interesting, compelling competition, and I think Oxford being able to be not just competitive but actually the favourites going into a women's boat race for the first time in what feels like quite a long time is a really good narrative for the season as it begins to unfold.
Yes, there's so many exciting narratives to look forward to back in the UK, but also stateside as well. Some of these collegiate narratives, some of these youth narratives that have been spinning out this weekend will be fascinating as all of these crews go back and do their respective winter training and then blast onto the scene into the spring. But Tom, Colleen, thank you very much for chatting today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it has been truly wonderful to host this show once again on the banks of the famous Charles River in what is an incredibly special 60th anniversary year of this wonderful event, the great Head of the Charles Regatta. This has been a very special 3 episodes of All American Rowing, proudly sponsored by Wintec and King Racing.